We were taught to look at them as graves, isolated remnants of a fallen Stone Age tribe. But isolation is a human illusion. At 27 degrees south, in the loneliest stretch of the Pacific, the Earth has been hiding an antenna. July 2026. A black-budget geological satellite orbiting the South Pacific flags an impossible reading. 3 miles beneath the dead basalt roots of the Reno Cal volcano, something is breathing. A rhythmic, electromagnetic thermal pulse repeating every 72 seconds. Operating under a total media blackout, an elite international research team breached the island's protective perimeter. They didn't bring shovels. They brought seismic drills designed for the deep crust. At 900 meters, the drill didn't hit magma. It dropped into a void. Drones lowered into the chasm revealed a vertical highway carved not by nature, but by molecular thermal displacement. A shaft of pure, unblemished volcanic glass. Led by Dr. Alastair Finch, the team stepped onto a threshold that predated human history. The air was bone-dry, sterile, and carried a low-frequency hum that didn't vibrate the ears. It vibrated the human nervous system. The instruments glitched first. Standard electromagnetic sensors could not calibrate. The background radiation of the cavern wasn't decaying. It was structured, operating on a mathematical frequency. Finch traced the structural coordinates. They were standing directly beneath the Ahu Tongariki, the heaviest concentration of Moai on the surface. But from below, the stone foundations morphed into something synthetic. For centuries, mainstream anthropology claimed these monuments were moved on wooden rollers by primitive hands. They missed the architecture holding them from below. Driven by a timeline dictated by rogue financiers, Finch ordered the team to breach the primary seal. It was a choice that would permanently alter human history. As the seal ruptured, a pressurized hiss echoed through the chamber. The atmospheric pressure dropped instantly, carrying the scent of pure ozone and dry copper. Beyond the barrier lay a subterranean hangar, not a tomb, but a staging ground holding dozens of unrecorded monoliths, perfectly preserved away from the erosion of the surface world. The acoustic monitors began picking up vocalizations. Not human voices, but a rhythmic click-clack sequence that mimicked early telemetry systems used in early space exploration. This isn't a dead site, Finch recorded in his personal log. The entire island is a hollowed-out hull. We are walking inside a dormant machine. The team's heavy power generators began strain, experiencing a massive, unexplainable voltage drain that defied local grounding laws. Something was drawing power from their machinery. The intrusion had closed a circuit that had remained open for over 12 millennia. On the surface, the silent watchers of Easter Island received their first spark of current. The network was initializing. The deception. As the sediment was cleared from the buried torsos, the traditional tribal narrative evaporated. These weren't crude representations of human ancestors. The hands of the underground giants featured 6 elongated, mathematically precise digits. They were locked onto dark, non-reflective metallic cylinders seamlessly integrated into their hips. Etched along the spine of every monolith was a complex lattice of petroglyphs. Under computer cross-examination, the patterns revealed a multi-layered quantum microchip architecture. On the shoulder blade of the primary giant sat a celestial chart calibrated to the night sky of 10,500 BC. Curiously, it highlighted a specific coordinate in Orion's belt, a star system modern astrophysics logs as long dead. A density scan of the stone hulls shattered all remaining doubts. The volcanic basalt was merely insulation. Encased within was a sophisticated inner skeleton composed of an ultra-dense, superconducting alloy. The precision was impossible for tools made of bone or obsidian. The margins of error across 80 different statues were down to the single micrometer. Mass spectrometry of the internal crystalline skeleton returned elements that did not match Earth's natural crustal composition. They were looking at synthesized materials. Dr. Elena Vance discovered that the Rongo-Rong text found on the island wasn't a primitive written language. It was a compressed binary system designed to program the superconducting skeletons. The danger escalated when a diagnostic probe accidentally completed a pathway. A static discharge arched across the excavation bay, instantly frying the team's databanks. Then the eyes ignited, not with fire, but with a cold, internal, pale blue luminescence. The network wasn't waking up, it was booting up. 80 active processors, buried in perfect synchronization, began drawing the ambient thermal energy out of the surrounding volcanic rock. The temperature in the cavern plummeted 30 degrees in seconds. The air turned to frost as the machine converted local geothermal heat into raw processing power. Finch tried to halt the sequence, but the human mainframes were completely overridden by an external command architecture that tracing back deeper into the planet. The terminal began displaying a structural map of the island's absolute interior, revealing a gargantuan, perfect spherical chamber positioned directly beneath the Reino-Kau volcanic crater. A heavy obsidian bulkhead partition slid open at the back of the hangar, revealing a gateway to a depth no human eye was ever intended to see. Leaving their heavy equipment behind, the skeleton crew descended into the heart of the world. They were no longer investigators, they were targets. The core vault. What lay beneath the crater shattered human concepts of ancient engineering. A colossal subterranean citadel built from non-reflective, anti-gravitational matter. They stood on a bridge, suspended over a void so vast it could swallow an entire modern metropolis without touching the structural perimeter. Suspended in the absolute center of the sphere was an inverted obelisk composed of a fluid metal alloy, shifting shape in midair with zero visible supports. "It's a planetary anchor," Finch whispered, his voice lost in the immense scale of the vault. "The Moai on the surface aren't statues. They're the distribution nodes." Every single giant on the surface was hardwired through miles of deep crust crystalline conduits directly into this central floating core, forming a planetary-scale energy grid. The team approached a central control podium, a monolithic plinth of dark stone inlaid with touch-sensitive blue glass that lit up upon human proximity. As Dr. Vance interacted with the interface, a massive global map materialized in the air. It revealed that Easter Island was not an isolated anomaly. It was a single valve. The energy lines connected directly to identical underground matrices beneath the Giza Plateau, the Mariana Trench, the deep ice of Antarctica, and the ruins of Stonehenge. As the network synchronized, local physics began to fail. Gravity inside the vault fluctuated, lifting loose equipment and water droplets into the air. Time was losing its structural anchor. Digital clocks glitched into infinite loops, while mechanical instruments ticked backward with terrifying acceleration. The ancients didn't live in primitive tribes, Finch realized. They built a planetary shield, a global defense matrix designed to deflect cataclysmic cosmic radiation. The simulation shifted, displaying a historical record from 12,000 years ago. A massive solar superflare had struck the Earth. Several key nodes failed, collapsing the shield and plunging the world into an artificial ice age. Because the team's drills had severed a secondary feedback line, the automated core mistook the system damage for an imminent orbital threat. The grid was executing a forced reboot. "Abort! Cut the power!" Finch yelled over the static, but human electronics were entirely drowned out by the roar of the awakening machine. The fluid metal obelisk began to rotate at relativistic speeds, morphing into a pillar of pure, solid white plasma that illuminated every corner of the ancient vault. The vault was open. The activation could no longer be contained by human hand. The overload. On the surface, the ground ruptured. A colossal column of coherent blue energy erupted from the Reno Cow crater, piercing straight through the atmosphere. Commercial aviation networks across the southern hemisphere collapsed instantly as a massive electromagnetic pulse knocked out satellite arrays and navigation instruments. Every Moai statue on the surface acted as a localized satellite dish. Their heavy stone heads, once thought by historians to face inward to honor ancestors, were pointed at precise orbital defense coordinates. Deep underground, structural integrity was failing. The gravitational distortion was turning the air heavy, crushing the oxygen out of the team's lungs. The core was redlining. Because the sister nodes in Antarctica and Egypt were still offline, the immense energy loop had nowhere to go, cascading back into the central chamber. Finch realized that if the reboot loop completed with a fractured global network, the energy imbalance would cause a localized tectonic rupture, tearing the island apart. The local space-time continuum began to unravel. The extreme energy output allowed the team to see echoes of the past, translucent silhouettes of the non-human builders who once stood in this very room. For a brief second, Finch locked eyes with a temporal projection of a pre-human engineer. It was a look of profound warning. Humanity was trying to operate a machine it did not understand. "Finch, the simulation wasn't an ancient history file." Vance screamed through the noise. "It's an astronomical forecast." The countdown clock wasn't tracking the past. The machine was calculating the return of the recurring 12,000-year solar maximum cycle. It was counting down to our lifetime. Knowing that an incomplete activation would destroy the region, Finch made an ultimate sacrifice. He decided to use his own body as a biological fuse to trigger an emergency abort. "Save the data, Elena," he commanded. The energy arc was blinding, enveloping his silhouette in a violent cascade of pure kinetic plasma. The contact was made. The biological circuit completed, cutting the transmission link between the surface monoliths and the subterranean core. On the surface, the giant beam of blue energy vanished from the night sky. The electromagnetic field snapped back, leaving only the scent of ozone over the silent sea. The machine died. The gravitational field equalized instantly, dropping loose debris and the surviving crew members hard onto the cold stone floor. When the dust settled, Alistair Finch was gone. Left behind on the scorched stone console was nothing but an empty tactical helmet and a machine that had returned to its deep sleep. The cover-up. Within 4 hours of the atmospheric discharge, international task forces descended upon Easter Island, enforcing an absolute military quarantine. The unauthorized drill site was filled with millions of tons of high-grade industrial concrete. The surviving research staff were separated and detained in undisclosed facilities. The public narrative was quickly deployed across mainstream media, a rare tectonic gas release combined with a freak atmospheric lightning event. The files were buried. But truth is an uncontainable element. Before her apprehension, Dr. Vance managed to upload a single encrypted file containing the final decoded telemetry stream to an offshore network. The final data translation did not contain tribal legends. It was an operating manual left behind for whoever was intelligent enough to dig up the statues. The document confirmed that the Moai were never objects of primitive religious idolatry. They are components of an automated defense grid, built to save the next cycle of humanity. Every 12,000 years, our sun undergoes a violent galactic reset. The builders knew this. They left the tools for our survival sitting in plain sight on the surface of the Earth. But for the shield to function, the network must be complete. A single node cannot deflect what is coming from space. The countdown timer has already been activated. The other dormant network hubs hidden beneath the sands of Egypt, the deep trenches of the Atlantic, and the thick glaciers of Antarctica are still waiting to be reached. The authorities think they have bought themselves safety by burying the truth under concrete. They have only ensured our defenselessness. History did not get it wrong. Modern civilization simply developed an advanced case of historical amnesia, forgetting who we were and what we left behind. The machine underneath the island is no longer completely dormant. It is listening, waiting for the rest of the world to wake up. The cosmic clock is ticking down, and the next solar storm will not wait for humanity to agree on its own true history. We have been handed the keys to our own survival, written in the stone bones of an island forgotten by time. The ancient watchers have done their duty for 12,000 years. The grid has initialized. The final question is, are we ready to face the truth? Thank you for watching this unsealed dossier from the Vault of Mysteries. Subscribe now, before the next node activates. Our next investigation is already on your screen.